We got six different stories to cover from six different media outlets. It is time for another episode of the World's News Round. Let's go, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here for another premiere video of the World's News Round, where I cover various different stories all in one video for you guys. It's a premiere video. The date and time of this recording, just for reference here, is in the 28th of February at 15:52 p.m. UK time, just for reference there. The six stories we're going to be covering. The first one will be from France 24 with the headline of Insult to Injury and what's behind the rising tension between France and Algeria. There. The next one will be reading is a headline from Al Jazeera with jailed PKK leader tells the group to lay down arms and end the conflict with Turkiye. There, conflict in the Middle East that's been going on for a fair while. The next one will be from the Association Press with hundreds of weather forecasters have been fired in the latest wave of DOGE cuts. Now, obviously, that could possibly change by the time you guys see this one. The next story we have is an opinion piece from the New York Times with the headline, this is from Michelle Goldberg, Andrew Tate, an accused sex trafficker, is Trump's kind of guy. The next one we'll have is from CNN with the headline that Hungarian government clamps down on pride marches citing child protection reasons. Yeah. And finally, the last story we have is from Central News Asia. The headline that China's leaders are gathering to hash out Trump tariff battle plans. That's certainly going to be interesting to say the least. We also have two funny videos we'll have in between, one in between, as well as at the end of this premiere video, guys. Just a reminder, if you enjoy the content anyway along the way, make sure you hit that like button, share across social media, and if you like the content that I provide, please subscribe to check out more. Right, let's get started, guys. So the first one here from France 24, insult to injury. What's behind the rising tension between France and Algeria? So the French Prime Minister, Francis Bayrou, if I mispronounce any names in this video, I do apologise, announced on Wednesday that Paris would be re-examining the 1968 Migration Pact that has historically made it easier for Algerians to settle in France. This follows months of campaigning by hardline anti-immigration Interior Minister Bruno Reganelite, who has accused Algerians of trying to humiliate the French people. Now, there has been a long... Now, obviously, Algeria was once a former French colony. So, obviously, there has been this 1968 Migration Pact. So, a little bit of details on it. So, it basically gives a lot of concessions towards Algerians who choose to come to France, as opposed to nationalities of other people who come to France who want to live and work and become a French citizen. They get a bit of a bypass, Algeria, and it's based off the history of the fact that France basically treated Algeria badly, as do many European nations have treated African nations badly. And this Migration Pact is one of the ways of mitigating those wounds. Now, obviously, migration has obviously been a subject of discussion, not just in the UK, but a subject of discussion pretty much around Europe as well as America. It has been the topic of discussion because it's something that is generally pushed as the reason why everyone is worse off, the reason why everyone has the perception that it's been hammered by millionaires and billionaires is making people believe that their problems lie with immigrants, by migrants, rather than actually governments or influence being made by private businesses and companies, for example. Now, obviously, this is obviously not very good, because obviously France, of course, one of the things that they have been under pressure for is dealing with immigration as well, because them, like other European nations, they face the brunt of migration, because obviously from the south of France, obviously those coming through Italy as well. So and they have had to take their fair share of migrants within the EU as well, and this is something obviously that's caused tension. We know that those on the far right, the Marine Le Pen and her party, which has gathered a great deal of support and strength, and have argued for more stronger things need to be done when it comes to migration as well. And that's why, Macron's tenure is going to end as president, but his party of remaining in power very, very unlikely when the next elections take place, that is for sure. So let's read more into this story, guys. So The time for diplomacy, it seems, is drawing to a close. The French Prime Minister Francis Bayrou on Wednesday announced that his government would be spending up to 6 weeks re-examining all of the immigration agreements struck between Paris and Algiers since Algeria won its independence from France in 1962. So in the coming weeks, he added, the French government would also present Algerians with a list of Algerian nationals living in France that Paris was determined to send back to their home country. So this is all playing down along the immigration path, of course. The months-long decline in the two countries' relationship accelerated sharply last week after an undocumented Algerian national, believed to be suffering from schizophrenia, killed 1 person and wounded 6 in more than a stabbing spree in the French town of Mulhouse near the German border. The Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau, a member of the right-wing Les Republicans party, said that the man had been under a OQTF obligation to leave the French territory deportation order, but that the Algerian government had repeatedly refused to take him back. Now, we don't know that if that's true or not, but understandably so. It's perfectly understandable for people to feel that if this is actually true, if this is actually somebody, this story in particular, we don't have a particular case like this in the UK, but you can bet your ass that if something like this, if there's a case like this, it will be amplified tenfold by the right wing in the UK. But absolutely, Les Republicans party, they have taken advantage of this situation, amplified the need for more, once again, of deporting of any using the term illegal migration, which is no such thing, or pushing, these people are a threat and a danger to them, because just because one person has done this, the assumption is that they are all dangerous, they all must be deported, they all are a threat. And unfortunately, that is the perception that is painted when these things happen. I think first and foremost, my heart goes out to the person who lost their lives and those who suffered in this stabbing, and I generally hope that the victims' friends and families recover from this. I really, really do. And if it is true that the Algerian government refused to take them back, we would like to know the reasons why. What were the consensus of why this was the case? Suritu has for weeks now accused the Algerian government of trying to humiliate France, and Algeria allegedly refused to work with Paris to allow the deportation of the undocumented Algerian nationals living in France has been a core part of his growing list of grievances. Now, why? What is the reason here? Is it just they just don't want to take them back? Is that the case? In one high-profile case, a 59-year-old cleaner and social influencer, Bolimdum Nam, known as Dolomon, who has lived legally in France for 36 years, so he's been there for 36 years, was arrested and deported to Algeria for allegedly inciting violence against an Algerian activist opposed to that country's government. 36 years. The guy has lived legally in France and he got deported. That's wrong. Like, come on. Like, how much time do you need to spend in the country before, 36 years, guys. 36 years. But he was sent back to France the same day his flight landed in Algiers, with the Algerian government insisting he deserves the rights to a fair trial in the country that he has long called home. The government is absolutely right in this, especially when there's someone legally living in France for 36 years. The OQTF order was later lifted by a local administrative court, a decision that Ritu has sworn to appeal. The arrest by Algerian authorities last November of the Algerian-born writer Bolobol Sandri, who was also granted French citizenship last year, has also fed the rise in fire. Sansal, a major figure in modern Francophobic literature, is known for his strong stance against both authoritarianism and Islamism. He has been charged with terrorism-related offences for undermining the integrity of national territory. Apparently connected in an interview he gave to a French far-right newspaper, saying that swathes of Western Algeria rightfully belong to neighbouring Morocco. That's been the situation over Algeria and Morocco has been a long-standing one. That has been a long-standing one, that is. The French President Emmanuel Macron last year triggered diplomat fury during a visit to Morocco when he reversed decades of French government policy by endorsing Rabat's sovereignty over the contested Western Sahara. Yeah, that's not helping the situation. Algiers have long backed Saadi's independence through its support of the separatist Polisario Front, a stance that Algeria believes is in keeping with the United Nations' decade-long recognition of the Western Sahara as a territory denied the right to self-governance. Earlier in February, Culture Minister Tate became the first French official to formally visit the territory. Yeah, it's a very... I recommend checking out the YouTuber Real Life Law on this particular on this story with Algeria and Morocco to get a bit more contrast with it. From my acknowledgement, yeah, it's a very complicated one, that is for sure. Yahina Zumba, a non-resident senior fellow at the Middle East Council on Global Affairs in Doha, Qatar, said it was difficult to see a way out of the worsening crisis between the two countries. It's the worst crisis I remember, and I'm of a certain age, he said. You have the son of a former French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, saying that he would burn down Algerian consultants, and then Rajida Dali going to the Western Sahara. No one wants to de-escalate the situation. Although Barrow stressed it on Wednesday that he was not trying to exaggerate tensions between Paris and Algiers, his threat to rethink long-standing treaties between the two countries, including much amended 1968 Migration Pact that has historically made it easier for Algerian nationals to settle in France, echoes the hardline demands that Richelieu has been hammering across French media for weeks. Kadada Moskin-Fing, a political scientist specializing in North Africa's Marbeek region at the Paris Sorbonne, the CNRS SIRIC Research Center, said that the collapsing relationship between the two countries had to be viewed in part of the lens of France's own political crisis. This is a good way of putting that. I agree that France's political crisis has forced them to make drastic decisions that they don't want to do. Those because of the rise of the far right within France. The snapped legislative elections called by President Emmanuel Macron in June 2024 left no one party with majority in parliament, and the so far short-lived coalitions that have followed have seen Macron's followers join forces with an increasingly anti-immigrant left Republicans to form a government. Since Emmanuel Macron's dissolution of the National Assembly, part of the political right, part of Les Républicains have launched themselves into a controversy with Algeria to position themselves on the political chessboard with a view to the 2027 presidential elections, he said. They have basically created an enemy that combines many of the characteristics that the French fear, that is, immigration and insecurity, and the Algerians is going to embroil all this at once. But the relationship between France and Algeria is a very old one, dating back to the early 19th century, when Algeria was made up of 3 French departments, and now people are going to reduce it to the question of the OQTFs. Algeria is far from the only country to drag its heels on deportation. The General Director of Foreign Nationals in France, which sits under the Interior Minister, announced this week that out of 5,000 or so requests in 2024 by France for Algerian authorities to provide potential deportees with the Lazarus passes needed to facilitate their passage back to Algeria. Roughly 42% have been granted, and by contrast, the average number of French applicants accepted by other countries is the same year sat around 60%. For Mosky Fan, the French government's reaction to the Mulhouse attack shows how much domestic political pressure were driving the response of Macron and his ministers. With the Mulhouse affair, they could have said that from the beginning that he was a psychiatric case. There was no need to even mention that he was Algerian, she said. For the Interior Minister, it was manna from heaven because he was involved at everything at once. Algeria's refusal to take him back violate violence and terrorism because the president immediately said that it was Islamic terror. So that was very quick. Even though the tensions are very high on the French side, I'm sorry, but we can see there's no desire at all to lower those tensions. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that, yes, there's no reason to mention the nationality because whatever the crime it is a terrible tragedy. But those on the right will take advantage of these situations, and it's no different in the UK. It's no different in America. It's no different in any other country. If they will use anything to make a political football, to make a political gain, and this is another case of in French politics here of them taking advantage of the situation. Although Algeria and France still enjoy significant economic ties, European demand for Algeria's peaceful natural gas supplies have only become more urgent since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The two countries have had a strained relationship since Algeria won its independence after years of brutal fighting. Dombe said that the history of colonial rule still weighed heavily on Algeria's collective memory. What re-emerges really is the question of memory, he said, and within this context there is also the belief. I'm giving you now the Algerian interpretation that France has never accepted Algeria's independence. This is something that brings both the state and the society that France never accepted, and we are now a sovereign nation. And when it's repeated all the time in Ad Nasseram, as Macron did when he talked about how Algeria was no nation before the French colonized it, that colonization is a good thing, and so on and so forth, adds insult to injury. Yeah, let's be clear about this. You know, the carving, to remind people of the long history, the carving of the countries and the map layout of Africa was not by Africans themselves. It was by European countries who took it over. It's really important to emphasize that. It was not down to them to make that decision, Africans. As the two countries' relationship deteriorate, French media has once again become the host of debates on the nature of French rules in Algeria. Speaking to French TV station in LCI in January, the far-right figurehead, Marine Le Pen, whose late father, the founder of the France's far-right party, then known as the National Front, himself as a paratrooper in Algeria, and has been repeatedly implemented for having committed acts of torture during the war, insists that French colonization has been no drama for Algerians. Listen, I may not know a lot about the history, but I can tell you that this is absolute BS there. It is not. It has been, you know, for to be living under a rulership of another country has not been good for them. Okay? Not everyone in France looks back on the days of the French Algeria with such open nostalgia. National media watchdog ARCRM this week opened an investigation into local radio station after journalist Jean-Michel Apri compared the mass killing of civilians by French troops in Algeria to massacres carried out by Nazi troops during French's own occupation by a foreign power. Marceline Fing said that both countries still carry vastly distinct perceptions of this painful history. Yeah, it's important that I think that context is really important, because France knows what it was like to be under the rule of a foreign power, and that's what happened to them, you know, during World War II. So for them, they know what that was like. And Algerians, however you might think of their country and the problems that they have, that's how they feel about France. It's control over their territory. In France, we stopped talking about the Algerian war, colonization, French settlement, and so on, she said. And there's been a blank spot, an absence of history, as historian Benjamin Sola puts it on this issue. So the French think that the Algerians talk too much about it, and that the political and intellectual media space is saturated with the history of the war and colonization. On the other hand, the Algerians think that the French have drawn the line or forgotten about 132 years of war and colonization. It was a very painful war for them. So Barr said the feeling of resentment was only strengthened by the French government's escalating show of force against Algerian authorities. I don't know if they talk about this war in education, if they educate themselves about this war in French schools or not. But I think it would be a great deal of reflection if they did. But someone can let me know in the comments. Whenever there is an issue, or at least the question of the sovereignty of Algeria, that becomes bad, especially when Bolon-Sandy, he said, the interpretation in Algeria is, oh, wait, what? We don't have a justice system? You in France, you can do whatever you want. You can judge or not judge. Why is it that we cannot have our own laws as it goes, so it goes deep? Ultimately, most fans said the unique threat of a rupture between the two governments would only make life more difficult for the millions of people living in France with ties to both countries. It's clear we're seeing a criminalization of Algerians living in France without documentation, she said. But there are a lot of Algerians who have some who are undocumented. So you have some who are living here legally, and that's the vast majority. So it's a way of casting an anathema on a country of creating an enemy. I think they should, having Algerians living in France without documentation, they should have covered themselves really with that, if I'm honest. Fascinating piece, I will say. That's very worrying. There's long wounds here for Algerians and the country Algeria with France, and rightfully so. I really hope that things can turn around for the better. I'm not holding my breath on it, and like I said, as it was said in there, the political chaos in France is not very good. And obviously, the whole talks around immigration is amplifying the need to put countries to put themselves first and foremost. This whole France first, Britain first, America first, this agenda is rising within many European countries. Many people within the far right who always talk about, taking their country back, in this reference. It feeds into this narrative and people buy into it, thinking that it will make their lives better by pushing everyone else that is not of their nation out. And this is one of it as well. This is adding to this rhetoric, this language, this kind of stuff is adding to it here. And obviously this tragic case of this what this horrible man did, murdering and wounding others, regardless of his physical or mental issues. It should never have happened in the first place. Again, I don't know if he was supposed to have been deported and they refused. We don't know I don't know for sure, but there were mistakes were definitely made when you think about it, guys, without a shadow of a doubt. The next story I've got for you guys is from Al Jazeera. The headline is: the jail PKK leader tells the group to lay down arms and end the conflict with Turkey. In a historic move, Abdullah Öcalan has asked his party to lay down arms and dissolve itself, according to his statement. I'm going to read a bit more into this before I give my thoughts, because I think this is I'm not entwined with this as much. So the jail leader of Turkey's outlawed Christian Workers' Party, the PKK, Abdullah Öcalan, has made a historic call for the party to lay down its arms, dissolve itself, and end the decades-long conflict with the Turkish state. A delegation of Turkey's pro-Kurdish DEM party on Thursday visited the island's prison, where Öcalan has been held since 1999, and later delivered his statement in nearby Istanbul. Now, that's a very good question of whether he was done it under any sort of influence. I think is very worth wondering. I am making a call for the laying down of arms, and I take on the historical responsibility of this call, Öcalan said in the letter. Convey your party Congress and make a decision. All groups must lay down their arms and the PKK must dissolve itself, Öcalan said, according to the statement. The PKK is deemed a terrorist organisation by Turkey and its Western allies. Commenting on the move, the ruling AK People's Party's chairman Ilker Adda said that his country will be free of its shackles if the PKK lays down arms and dissolves. In the first response from President Erdogan's ruling party, Allah said that the government expected the PKK to comply with Öcalan's call. They don't have to. There'll certainly be tensions for sure. Al Jazeera's Zim Kolosky, reporting from Istanbul, said Öcalan's letter carries historical importance as it's the first time he's asking the PKK to dissolve itself. This makes the DEM party more significant in Turkish politics, Kosku has said. So, a changed Turkey. In his letter, Öcalan explained his decision by saying that the PKK has been formed during the period where the Turkish state restricted Kurdish rights, that Kurdish identity was no longer denied in Turkey, that there have been improvements in freedom of expression. Turkey has in recent decades removed restrictions on the use of Kurdish language and the free expression of Turkish identity, particularly since the AK party came to power in 2002. However, detractors said that the state has not gone far enough in granting more rights for Kurds in Turkey. Respect for identities, free self-expression, democratic self-organisation in each segment of society based on its own social, economic and political structures are only possible through the existence of democratic society and political space, Öcalan said in his letter. But the question really is that do they feel that enough has been done? Do the Kurdish people feel? Do they feel enough has been done that they feel they have their voice now? Considering everything that they've gone through, everything that they have suffered, everything that they are fighting for, has there been enough for them? I don't justify whatsoever the use of this. I don't justify any kinds of war or bloodshed, but they've been fighting for what they believe in for themselves, whether we agree or disagree with it. The PKK launched its fight against the Turkish state in 1984. Its aim was an independent homeland for Kurds in southeastern Turkey, but has since officially moved away from separatist goals, instead calling for more autonomy. However, it did not renounce armed violence, and groups affiliated with the PKK have continued to carry out sporadic attacks in Turkey. In October, the PKK claimed responsibility for an attack on a Turkish state-run defense company near Akina that killed 5 people and wounded 22 others. And in response, Turkey struck the PKK targets in Iraq and Syria. Turkey regularly conducts airstrikes against the PKK in Iraq and against affiliated groups in Syria. The appeal from Olicon could have implementations for the major oil exporting region of northern Iraq, where the PKK is based, and for neighbouring Syria, where it's emerging after 13 years of civil war and the ousting of December of President Bashar al-Assad. Yeah, things have been very quiet at the moment in Syria, from last I've heard, and I hope it continues that way. President of the Kurdistan Regional Government in northern Iraq, Navaran Baraski, welcomed Olicon's message, while in Syria, Masagul Abdi, the head of the Syrian Democratic Forces, many of whose leadership is affiliated with the PKK, said that Olicon's statement was historic, but was not related to us in Syria. A Turkiye PKK peace process collapsed a decade ago. Olicon 75 had been imprisoned on the island of Marani off Istanbul since 1999 after being convicted of treason. Despite his incarceration, he continues to wield significant influence over the PKK, and the group's leadership is widely expected to heed any of his calls. Olicon's movement announced momentous announcement as part of a new effort for peace between the groups and the Turkish state, which was initiated in October by President Erdogan's coalition partner. Davidel Baskoli, the nationalist politician, suggests that Olicon could be granted parole if the group renounces violence and disbands. Last year, Olicon said he could shift the Kurdish question from an area of conflict and violence to one of law and politics, later offering assurances that he was ready to take the necessary steps and make the call. Thursday's meeting was the third time the DEM party officials have met with Olicon as part of a peace effort. The officials have also met with Selahattin Demirtas, an imprisoned former leader of the DEM party predecessor, and travelled to Iraq for talks with the Kurdish leaders there. The DEM party has had to change its name after it was repeatedly banned. Opponents said the party supports PKK terrorism, but the DEM said it's calling for greater democracy in Turkey, saying that the shutdown of DEM predecessors and the imprisonments of Demirtas is evidence of a crackdown against Turkey pro-Kurdish movement. Gallup Daily senior consulting fellow at the Charlton House said if successful, the move would be one of the most transformative events that have ever happened in the Middle East. It could redefine the course of Turkish politics. It would also redefine Turkey's relationship with the region's Kurds in the main neighbouring states, Daly had told Al Jazeera. This is very fascinating indeed. It's significant development, but does that mean the fighting is going to stop? I'm not holding my breath on that. However, Olicon's history and his influence and power does speak for it. But is it going to be enough? Will they heed that? My honest answer is I don't know. You know, while I don't always fully understand certain conflicts and history enough as others, one thing I do want is arms to stop, weapons to stop, and lives to be lost. But I also believe in the right to be able to protect themselves and protect what they believe in. I obviously would prefer it if they did it from the political point of view. From the political point of view inside is what it looks like what Olicon wants to do, because he wants to do it within Turkey through the politics of it rather than through violence. And I would prefer that too, if possible. I would prefer that too. But maybe some people still feel that they still don't get enough leeway. But what I will say is that we'll see if they respond. I will say this article was on the 27th of February, so I may try and get an update on this on the Rumble channel next week for you guys if you're keen to follow up on that. The next story I've got for you guys is from the Associated Press here. The headline is hundreds of weather forecasters have been fired in the latest wave of DOGE cuts. So the Department of Government Efficiency has once again shot itself in the foot. I'm just going to say that now. I would not be surprised by the time you hear this story or that I'm reading this story to you that they may U-turn on some of these forecasters being fired. Considering that some of the weather events that take place across the United States of America, it's really important that these forecasters are here. Some of the firings that they've already made in other departments, they've actually gone out of their way to call for them to come back, which is not a very good sign at all. This whole DOGE thing has not been working well at all. It has been hurting the government, but we know that the whole point of it is to try and dismantle the US government system in an attempt to make more money for themselves and the process as well. But I really do like the aviation, that they've been cutting back on. I really do fear, for people. Some of these weather events, tornadoes, forest fires that they suffer from, hurricanes that they get from in Florida as well. Like all these weather events, they need to be able to have all the latest information and technology that they need to help them. And firing these forecasters is denying people the notice of this as well, which is hugely concerning. So hundreds of weather forecasters and other federal, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration employees on probation statuses were fired on Thursday, lawmakers and weather experts said. So federal workers were not let go, said the afternoon layoffs, including meteorologists who do crucial local forecasts for national weather services across the country. Cuts in NOAA appeared to be happening in 2 rounds, one of 500 and one in 800, said Craig McLean, a former NOAA chief scientist, who said he got the information from someone with first-hand knowledge. That's about 10% of NOAA's workforce. The first round of cuts were probably employees, McLean said. There are about 375 probationary employees in the National Weather Service, where day-to-day forecasting and hazard warning is done. The firings come amid efforts by billionaire Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency to shrink the federal budget that President Donald Trump has called a bloated and slobbery. Thousands of probationary employees across the government have already been fired. Republican Grace Mendy, the DNY, released a statement saying today hundreds of employees at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, including weather forecasts and the National Weather Service, have been given termination notice for no good reason. This is unconstitutional. Meng added that these are decade hard-working Americans whose efforts to save lives and properly from the devastating impact of natural disasters across the country. This action will only endanger American lives going forward. We've already had lots of plane crashes or one plane collision. People's lives have already been lost as a direct result of the cutting of the aviation industry. Now, when they have real bad weather events, weather disasters, they may not see it coming because of these cuts. Which means, and also when it comes to warning Americans about it and being able to evacuate from these areas, that might be less known to Americans, which means more American lives will be lost as a result of it. Republican Jane Huffman, a California Democrat who is ranking minority member in the House National Resource Committee, said hundreds of scientists and experts at NOAA were let go. Daniel Swan, a climate scientist at the University of California, Los Angeles, said on social media that the job cuts are spectacularly short-sighted and ultimately would deal with a major self-inflicting wound to the public safety of America and resiliency of the American economy to weather and climate-related disasters. Well, we know that Donald Trump doesn't care about climate. He's made that very clear that he does not give a damn about the climate. We know that for sure. I'm assuming that Elon Musk doesn't care about climate either. I don't know if he's an actual climate denier or not. You can let me know in the comments, but this is a horrible decision. Again, like I'm saying, things can drastically change with this American administration. Things can change on a whim of a dime. So I'm hoping that by the time you guys see this video, that maybe there's been a U-turn, maybe some of them have been brought back in, but anything related around climate, they will want to get rid of. They don't want any of that belief. But it's really, really scary. Again, people's lives are going to get lost. People are going to lose their lives as a direct result of this. Again, all this for money. All this for money. That's what this all is as well at the end of the day. So guys, we have gone just well over half an hour here. I just want to throw a funny video just to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. Got a couple more important stories to cover here, but I hope you guys enjoyed this funny video from Nerdine Skinner Comedy. Do check out her YouTube channel. The headline for this one is she's parodying Liz Truss here. Liz Truss' new social media platform CPAC speech is a Liz Truss parody. Hope you guys get a laugh out of this.
Hello, it's me, Liv Struss. Now, I conquered the UK, so I've come out to the US of A to do the same thing. So, I forced myself into joining up with Trump and Musk's committee, DOGE, DOGE. I get to wear a lead in everything. Oh, Cosy, I miss you. Take me back. Let's get dogging and annihilate the West. Climate change, gone. Human Rights Act, gone. BBC, gone. Traitors, gone. Let's drill, baby, drill. And flood this zone with muskrats or musk puppies if we have some. And I'm going to be creating a new social media platform where free speech will reign. A bit like MySpace, where because I'll be the creator, everyone will have to be my friend. Move aside, Tom. And you can write anything you want, like how much you love me, want me to be president, and how much you hate the left and the deep state. No lefties allowed in my space. We have been repressed for too long, and our ideals help this world. We won't repeat the same mistakes again. We won't repeat the same mistakes again. Free cheese and pork for all who enter. Like my new boyfriend Elon Musk is doing, get your chainsaw out and cut the oil pipes and flood yourself with the stuff. Flood yourself. Flood! I'm not mad, I'm just realistic. Live for president. Live for president. Who's with me? Live for president. Join in. Live. No. We'll work on it. Goodbye.
I never saw her speech at CPAC. I'm just going to assume that was her official speech at CPAC. Because, yeah, Americans have no idea who Liz Truss is, nor do they give a shit. But they still pay her to come out of those speeches, which is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Silly stuff. Guys, just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, hit that like button, it'd be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media, subscribe if you haven't too already, and do check out the membership tab to join a YouTube membership and financially support me in the work that I do. Anybody who does so is greatly appreciated. You can join for as little as just 99p, gets you access to custom emojis, access to members community posts, and you also get early access for additional content if you join the 199 membership level as well. Get emojis of these guys behind me here, which are very, very cool. And if you want to know a bit more about them, check out the live streams that we do regularly throughout the week, the midweek as well. Check out the Patreon and Rumble pages down below as well. I do exclusive content on them. Any other links as well. We've got a free Discord community as well that you're also welcome to join us on as well. So do check them out. You can find me on across all sorts of different social media. Thanks for listening. Much appreciated, guys. Let's carry on. The next story I've got for you guys is an opinion piece from the New York Times. So, Andrew Tate, the accused sex trafficker, is Trump's kind of guy. So, this is an opinion piece from Michelle Goldberg, and we'll read into it in just a moment, but I want to give you guys my thoughts and reactions to what's been happening in the latest news. So, obviously, the Tate brothers have left Romania, and they are currently, at this time of this recording, they are in the United States, specifically Florida. The Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, actually is not happy about having them here. And I think I can tell you, considering that he, he's kind of on the outskirts of, he tried to run for the Republican presidency and got pushed aside in the end. And these Tate brothers, they are... The thing is that they have been accused of sex trafficking. They've been accused of a lot of things. Now, yes, they have not been convicted of anything. That is something I have to say at the moment, under the rules of law, that is true. But these accusations and stories have not gone away. There have been many women that have called them out for this. And until that they can prove without a shadow of a doubt that they are innocent, these stories, rightfully so, should not go away. And I think it was wrong for Romania to change the rules to allow them to travel. But the story goes is that the Trump administration pressured them to allow them to fly. So it's, I really hope we don't ever see them back in the UK. And I hope if they do, they are held to account for their crimes as well. For their alleged crimes. I do have to say alleged because while there have been many women who have made these accusations, it's really important that they are found guilty within a court rule of law. I know there've been a lot of... I'm fully aware of the stories and the context around Andrew Tate, and I'm someone that used to listen to a bit of Andrew Tate as well a long time ago as well. So I'm not defending him in any way, shape, or form because he is an accused sex trafficker, but he's not also guilty because he's not guilty because he hasn't been found proven 100% guilty either. But he's nowhere near innocent either. You know, the language and the language that he and his brother make is really volatile, and to say that he's Trump's kind of guy, unfortunately, is true. It's absolutely true. I mean, I really hope this guy does not get any place within the US government. That would be really scary. So on Thursday, the influencers Andrew and Tristan Tate, until recently stuck in Romania amid investigations to allegations including human trafficking and money laundering, arrived in Florida, apparently thanks to the good offices of Donald Trump's administration. The Tate brothers, British-American dual citizens, have been accused of luring women to Romania and forcing them to work as pornographic webcam performers. They're also being investigated for rape and human trafficking in Britain and were to be extradited when their Romanian case is concluded. Yeah, this is the thing. This is why you cannot take anything from these guys seriously. And until the Romanian cases are concluded, until they face the cases that have been put against them in the UK, like, it just seems like they're running away against the law, that they are guilty. If they're not guilty, they would face these cases. Though they maintain their innocence, Andrew Tate, a self-described misogynist and the more famous of the two, has regularly boasted about abusing and pimping women. And he has said that. There's lots of information out there on that. His method, is often said, was to seduce women and then pressure them into the sex trade. He often teaches his techniques to other men in online courses where studies could earn pimping hoes degrees. Women who live in his compound said, as he said in one video, aren't allowed to go out without him. Some are tattooed, owned by Tate. Oh my God. He left a voice note for a British woman who accused him of rape, saying, "The more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it." Tate is a big fan of Donald Trump, championing him and his millions of mostly young male followers on social media. "I'm a Trump fan because I'm a man," Tate said in October in an online conversation with Aidan Ross, an internet personality who is something of a Tate protege, and the white nationalist Nick Furies. "You have to support Trump if you're a man." The brothers regularly laid the blame for their legal woes on Trump's scapegoats, including USAID, George Soros, and the Biden crime family. Okay. Not sure how you make that connection, but sure, if you want to make that connection. Tate's combination of bombast, grievance, and transgressions have won him allies in Trump's circles. He reportedly a longtime friend of Donald Trump Jr., who called his detention in Romania absolutely insanity. One of Tate's former lawyers, Paul Ingrassia, now the White House liaison for the Department of Justice, in January, when Tate announced plans to form a British political party and run for Prime Minister, Elon Musk endorsed his analytics of British politics, writing, "He's not wrong." So while it is shocking that the Trump administration seemed to have pressured Romania to release him, as it's not surprising, as the Financial Times reported, US officials first raised the Tate case in a phone call with the Romanian government in early February. A week later, encapsulating the current state of American diplomacy, Richard Grenfell, a Trump special envoy, brought up the issue with Romanian foreign minister at the Munich Security Conference. "I support the Tate brothers as evidenced by my publicly available tweets," Grenfell told the Financial Times. And now the Tate brothers are here. Their spokesperson has even said they are getting their siege property back from Romania, including cars they are supposed to return to that country, and if and when their trial starts, I'll believe it when I see it. Wow. So all the property that was taken back in Romania has been given back to them, allegedly. I mean, what looks of an astonishing American intervention on behalf of accused sex traffickers was clear enough. An implicit promise of the most recent Trump campaign was to restore patriarchy, not the softer, pianist kind of patriarchy once promoted by the evangelicals like Mike Pence, but unfettered male domination. In seeking alienating and resentful young men, Trump appeared on the podcast and live streams like Aidan Ross at the Republican National Convention. He was introduced by Dana White, chief executive of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Dana White, who was once caught on tape slapping his wife in a nightclub. Trump's election, after a jury found him liable for sexual abuse, was a sign of that the Me Too movement was definitely dead. His appointments have reinforced a new age of male impunity. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, paid off a woman who accused him of sexual assault. His own mother accused him of abusing women, though she later disavowed her words. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary of Health and Human Services, was accused of sexually harassing his family's nanny, and at one point kept a diary of his conquest, which his wife at the time found. One of Musk's company, SpaceX, have reportedly paid $250,000 to a flight attendee who said he exposed himself to her. And in a lawsuit filed last year, former employees accused him of treating women as sexual objects to be evaluated on their bra size. I don't think I'm going to be able to monetize this live stream. So yeah, I know this stuff is uncomfortable, but it needs to be said, guys. These men weren't elevated despite their allegations of abuse of women. Putting them in charge proclaims their values now: ascendance, power, aggression, hierarchy, and leader worship. Tate shares these values by siding with them. Despite the crimes he accused of, this administration sends a classic message of the cardio: to my friends, everything; to my enemies, the law. After all, on the surface, it makes little political sense for Trump team to support Tate. Doing so may delight some of Trump's most trollish and terminalist online supporters, but plenty of religious conservatives are appalled, including those who are usually reliable Trump apologists. At a news conference on Thursday, Governor Ron DeSantis, I just mentioned him, of Florida, said he wasn't notified that the Tate brothers were coming. And he said that his state attorney general was looking at the possibility of charges against them. Florida is not a place where you are welcome with that type of conduct, he said, adding, I don't know how it came to this. Basically, you were pushed to the side on this. I think we have some idea. On Thursday, Trump said he knew nothing about the Tate's return to the United States. But even if he's telling the truth, people around him have been alienating for it. Last month, when Tate was on The Benny Show, a right-wing podcast, Annie Hubbard, now serving as counselor to the president, joined so she could say hello to him. Your anger is the same that President Trump has for our country, and the time has now come for stop being wimps, she gushed. Then she said, I agree with everything you say and I have your back out here in the States. Yeah, Annie Halbar, who was serving counselor to the president. It's quite a famous clip that you can find of her basically endorsing Tate. It's very scary. But yeah, I don't know if Trump's going to continue to push himself away from it. But yeah, he should be left in Romania and face whatever outcome of the case put against him by Romania. But I've got a feeling that under the next couple of years, I think the Tate brothers might just find themselves staying in America, potentially. And they may not have to push back, and people within Trump's administration will make sure that the Tate brothers are protected in America. That's what my fear is what's going to happen. It's wrong. They need to face their crimes, alleged crimes. They really do. It's not right that they are allowed to freely roam and go to America. It's not right that they do so. But unfortunately, Romania doesn't have that much influence, and if America obviously threatened them with something to say you need to do this. Obviously, we don't know what, but Romania don't really have much of a say against a power like America, unfortunately. This government that we're going to come into next, this story here is from CNN. So the Hungarian government clamps down on Pride March, citing child protection reasons. This is nonsense. Like, what on earth has Pride March got to do with child protection? Like, they are simply... Please, explain. What is the reason here? It's such nonsense. It's absolute nonsense here. People should be allowed to be who they want to be. But we always have people and governments and right-wingers and people online who think that they should decide what other people should be. No. These people, if they want to be gay, if they want to be lesbian, if they want to be bisexual, if they want to be non-binary, it should be their bloody choice. It should not after this government. This is absolute nonsense about child protection. This has no effect on children. The Hungarian government is clamping down on the country's annual Budapest Pride Parade, which has been running for almost 30 years, saying it should not dominate public spaces, citing what it claims are child protection issues. Julius Gullius, the chief staff of Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, made the remarks at a government information session on Thursday, according to a statement released by the Prime Minister's International Communications Office. While Gullis did not spell out what the clampdown would involve, he also announced changes to the country's constitution, which also include amending the definition of gender to be biologically male or female. This is the same crap, obviously, that been done in America. And enshrining in law that a child's right to physical, mental, and moral development takes precedence over all other considerations. On Wednesday, Reuters reported that Gullis said that the Pride should be held in closed venues this year rather than processing along an avenue in central Budapest in previous years. Why? What's the reason? Why not? Why can't they just, you have all sorts of other parades taking place. It's not affecting anyone. Nina Gusko, Senior Director of Law, Policy and Research at LGBTQ plus organisation Outright International, told CNN on Thursday that the idea of forcing Pride into a closet makes a mockery of the very concept of Pride. This is autocracy laid bare, Groski has said. Claims regarding child protection are pure lies aimed at manipulating the public into accepting the relinquishing of human rights for all. Queer, trans and intersex children exist and experience extreme violence and discrimination, she continued. If Orbán is acting on behalf of Hungary's children, he can't pick and choose. The best way to ensure children's healthy development is to acknowledge science, listen to children and strive to truly believe to leave no one behind. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that bit at the end there. Absolutely. Orbán's government has long cited child safety as a reason for undermining LGBTQ plus rights in the country. In 2020, Budapest effectively barred same-sex adoption, with Orbán's office saying at the time that the move strengthened the protection of Hungarian families and the safety of our children. What evidence do you have for this? Oh, that's right, you have no evidence. A year later, the country banned the distribution of content related to gender change or homosexuality under 18s. The European Commission said at the time that the law violated a number of EU rules as well as human dignity, freedom of expression and information. And in 2022, the Commission referenced Hungary to the EU's Court of Justice for the ban, which it says discriminates against people on the basis of their sexual orientation and gender identity. At Orbán's State of the Nation address on Saturday, he said Hungary must not yield and we must not give up on protecting our children. Protect them? There's nothing to protect them from what? They should be allowed to decide their own choice. It's not up to you to decide that. I advise the prize organisations they should not bother preparing for this year's parade. It would be a waste of time and money, he said. Again, leave them alone. Leave them alone. It's not up to you. You should just leave them alone. The same day, Budapest Pride said in a statement that it has already organised the 30th Pride March, which will be held in June. The March organisation said attacks on the LGBTQ community by those in power are nothing more than political theatre. The ruling party is using the LGBTQ community for its own gain. The press office for the mayor of Hungary had told CNN that for him, standing up to Pride is a natural and self-evident for the love between two people. To stand up for Pride is not only a conviction but also a duty as the mayor of a diverse and free city. Krasny will attend a pre-planned meeting with the organisations of the Budapest Pride on Friday. So the press officer said, so that means it's already happened. Although it was originally meant to discuss operations, the meeting is now taken on a new meaning in the current situation following the Hungarian government's campaign against Pride, it added. The slogan of this year's part of March will be, "We are home," the organisers said, adding that there have been countless attempts to ban the march over the years, which have all failed. In the end, Pride is a demonstration, whether with 20 people or tens of thousands, but it will happen, the statement said. We're not just fighting for Budapest's Pride March or the LGBTQ community. We're fighting for the rights of all Hungarians to protest, speak their minds, and stand up for themselves. And rightfully so. I hope that it does not get stopped in any way, shape, or form come June. I really hope. It's still quite a couple of months away from it, but I really hope, that they prepare for any and all outcomes in this situation. You're going to have this. I wouldn't be surprised if this government tries to sabotage it in some way, shape, or form. They will try anything and anything to justify stopping this. They will. They will try to. And I hope that they push through and it becomes another successful parade for them. I really hope so. The final story I've got for you guys is from Central News Asia. Here, China's leaders are gathered to hash out a Trump tariffs for the battle plans. So obviously, Donald Trump. The thing is that before I even, I'm going to read the article in a second, but this is the thing that's quite infuriating, right? There are times where Donald Trump has praised China, and there are times where he's going to slap and talk bad about China. You have no idea where Trump goes. He literally goes where the wind goes. It's like where the fart goes off, he turns in that direction. So China, if they're not already, and I pretty much assume they are preparing for everything. They should be, and I'm assuming they already are because they're well ahead of the curve, preparing for any and every outcome for whatever comes at them. If they actually impose tariffs, China will respond. If they don't impose tariffs and Trump says nice things, China will respond in the best way possible. This is the best way for them to approach it. You have to treat this guy you have to treat the president of the United States like a baby, because you just don't know how this baby's going to react, what he's going to say. He's going to say something different every day. And that's how China, I'm sure that's how China and the rest of the world see Donald Trump at the moment. So Beijing's leadership convenes next week for closed-door meetings to hammer out plans to shield the alienating economy from tariffs and trade threats from the US President Donald Trump. The two sessions involve gatherings of the country's parliament and the top advisory body. They offer a rare glimpse into the partnership priorities with concerns while facing an unprecedented unpredictable United States. China's largest trading partner and strategic rival. Yeah. All eyes will be on Wednesday, March the 5th, the opening of the National People's Congress, the NPC Parliament, where Premier Li Qiang will lay out an economic growth goals for 2025, offering insight into how optimistic Beijing is about the year ahead, as well as the new military spending. Analysts polled by AFP broadly agree that Beijing will set a goal of around 5% growth, the same as 2024. They see it as an ambitious objective given the headwinds China is battling, and Beijing's continued reluctance to inject the economy with the kind of large-scale stimulus observers say it needs. From the faltering property market to weak household spending, elevated youth unemployment, and tariffs, the economy is having a tough time. Harry Murphy-Cruz, head of China and Australia economics at Moody Analytics, had told AFP. One of those challenges would be a headache for officials combined, and they are a migraine. Luckily, top of the agenda is Trump, who just over a month back in the White House has overturned the international order and proven even more predictable than his first term. The US president imposed an additional 10% duty on products imported from China last month and has threatened more. The move could have affected hundreds of billions of dollars in trade and may even worsen if the marginalized followed through on his threat even higher custom levies. A US-led push to squeeze China out of the international supply chains for high-tech chips and other sensitive technology spearheaded by Joe Biden's administration is also expected to ramp up. And that effort has driven Beijing's policy of technological self-reliance, part of a broader initiative by China's leadership to develop new quality productive forces that hopes it can boost growth. Last May, Beijing poured more than $47 billion into the country's largest ever chip investment fund, the first phase of an effort to outpace the first two phases combined. Beijing is betting that a massive party led for research, innovation, commercialization, manufacturing, and digitalization can create new economic growth drivers. Analysts Neil Thomas and Quang Yang at the Asia Society said in a note. China hopes it can replace the real estate sector and generate productivity gains that help mitigate issues related to debt, demographics, and dependence on the West, they added. Analysts also said that pressure from Trump could encourage Beijing to step up the kinds of support for the economy seen last year. Interest rate cuts, easing local government debt pressures, and expanding subsidy programs for household goods. And we expect China to increase policy support in response to greater internal shocks from the US, Wang Chung, the chief China economics at the USB, had told the AFP. And more will roll out later in the year that there should be additional significant tariffs or other external shocks that will be properly turned worse, she added. Another key issue is the weak domestic consumption. Demand has been long-running drag on the world's second largest economy, fueling a deflationary spiral that has kept prices sustainably low. Analysts, experts, policymakers have broadened the scope to consumer goods trade in programming initiative last year that allows shoppers to exchange older home appliances and other items. That said, Louise Liu of Oxford Economics could have an immediate, a bit temporary impact on retail spending, but they warn much deeper issues and a driving of crisis of confidence in the economy, with long enjoyed double-digit growth has languished since the pandemic. The continued crisis in China's vast property sector, once a key driver of growth, but now besieged with sprawling debt, has become embedment of that marginalized. Last month, the new home prices in China's most developed first-tier cities fell 3.4% year-on-year, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The slide was even more pronounced in the second-tier cities, where new home prices dropped 5% on year in January, and the third-tier cities where prices fell 6%, the data showed. Our analysis of China's problems continue to lie in housing. Oxford's economics Lou has said, pointing to the impact that the crisis was having on everything from local government finances to consumer demand. Overcoming these powerful negative feedback loops in the economy this year would be policymakers' key task. Interesting indeed. Interesting stuff here. You know, China's seen as the powerhouse, but as reported here, obviously, we know that China has its problems. China's definitely having its own problems to deal with, and everyone just needs to try and get in control of this Trump baby that's just going to make things worse for everyone. And he is making worse for everyone. And definitely some food for thought there. Obviously, the Parliament will open up this Wednesday by the time this Wednesday for them. So they'll try to lay out whatever plans and responses that they can in doing so. But China still has a great deal of influence. They still hold a lot of cards. And I do expect them to try and bridge the gaps of where foreign aid has been cut by both the United States and China as well, because this is an opportunity for them to grow and bring more money into their economy in doing so as well, because we know that aid's been cut by the US. We know that aid's going to be cut by the UK. There's opportunities for them to step into those areas as well. But they obviously have a housing crisis, as reported there as well, that they need to deal with, among many other things. Definitely a lot of food for thought there from a lot of different stories there. Let me know what you guys thought of all these down in the comments below. But before you leave, we've just got one last video for you guys. And this one is a nice one here from Larry and Paul here with the world's worst airline awards. I'm sure. I wonder who's going to get this reward, guys. I'm very interested to see who won this reward. But let's check it out together, guys. So from Larry and Paul, the most reliable news outlet in the world, Broken News.
Welcome to Broken News. It's award season and competition is taking off as airline companies around the world compete for the coveted World's Worst Airline Award. Our reporter, Dirk McMichaels Burrowford, joins us live now from the Hollywood of air travel, Luton. Dirk, fierce competition this year. Who's in the running? Or should I say, who's in the running way? Who's on the running way? Who's in the running? Who's on the running?
Yeah.
Who's in the running way? Who's on the runway? Oh my God! Who's on the running way? The run.
Very good, Perry. Welcome to the busiest airport in the whole of Bedfordshire. It's the home of airlines such as EasyJet, Ryanair and Wizz Air, which sounds like a euphemism for pissing off a cliff, but Broken News has discovered is a real airline. Although I should say barely a real airline, because Wizz Air, along with many other airlines, is up for a coveted golden sick bag, the Oscars of terrible air travel. You know, this is a competition dominated by Ryanair in recent years, but this year's award is proving to be tighter than a tiny nun's chuff. Emirates and Singapore Airlines have once again been disqualified because of their unusual policy of not treating people like they're in a concentration camp. But what will tip the balance in favour of any particular airline? Yes, Ryanair took seconds off their flight turnaround time with a new policy of trapping passengers on freezing staircases for ages. But then all of Wizz Air's flights have been later than a builder who said he'd be there at 9 a.m. and you'd taken the morning off work and you'd tried to call him but he didn't answer or respond to your WhatsApps. He finally shows up around 2 p.m. saying his phone died despite it obviously ringing when you called it, and then 20 minutes later he goes off to slap a sloppy egg sandwich from the greasy spoon down his lazy gob and he still expects to be paid for the full day? Are you having a laugh, mate? Are you actually taking the piss? Aer Lingus have been making a late bid for the title by having an aggressive member of staff stomp around the boarding gate charging you €50 if your carry-on bag happens to be an atom too big for that weird metal cage thing that looks like something from a Soho sex dungeon. EasyJet are in the running for charging more per gram for your Pringles than your mate Mad Bance Rupert does for cocaine. But there could be strong competition from Jet2, which has even further ramped up its obsessive use of the song Hold My Hand by curly-haired pop ginge Jess Glynn. The airline, based in the fictional northern town of Leeds, says it deserves a golden sick bag simply on account of playing that song so much it causes some people to suffer nosebleeds. They play it in every advert, during takeoff, throughout the flight, during landing, after landing, as their call centre hold music at their check-in desks, in all their offices, in the cockpit, and at the funerals of staff members who die. It's going to be a close race, Perry, with everything to plane for. Back to you.
What the fuck? What a lovely story. No! That's all from Broken News. You're up to date.
That was a lovely story. Do check out Larry and Paul's YouTube channel as well. Subscribe to them if you haven't. Check out the video on their channel. Make sure you hit the like and share on theirs. Leave a comment down below as well of how much you enjoy their content as well. Highly recommended if you haven't already. But more importantly, guys, what did the gang think? What have you done to Ollie? They kicked Ollie off the orb. Which one of you did it? Which one of you kicked Ollie off the orb? Ah, Cash Dummy is there. Cash Dummy says he did not do anything. Okay. Blaze did not say anything. But at least there's a good news. The lava lamp has been empowered throughout this whole period as well, guys. Like I said, if you are a YouTube member, you get emojis of all of them as well. So, guys, I want to say a massive thank you. If you have watched all the way through, if you've watched from the premiere video aspect from the live feed, I want to say a massive thank you if you have. If you're watching this later on, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Do leave some comments in the feedback on some of these stories. If you want to add more context to these stories, feel free to do so, guys. I'll be back on Monday with another live stream there, so do join me for that. But before I go, just have one last thing to say, that if you haven't already, please hit that like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Share it across social media so others will know via this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further and financially support me in the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, and you can even join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.